The trenches seemed endless, a maze of mud and hopelessness. Here, time didn't run. It stagnated, mixing with the mud beneath men's feet. Arthur Bennett, a young soldier of just 20 years old, sought refuge in words. Amidst the chaos and cold, it was there, at that improvised table, that he found a moment of peace. His blue eyes, once full of hope, now reflected the shadow of war. Every word written seemed to carry the weight of his soul. The pencil trembled slightly in his fingers, tracing uncertain lines. On paper, they weren't just words, but pieces of a heart that longed for home. He wrote to his sister, describing a world he never wanted to know, trying to find meaning in the midst of the absurd. In the letter, the echo of a divided man. Part of it was here, in the trenches, the other, trapped, in memories of a distant home. He knew tomorrow was uncertain, but for now, his words still belonged to him. They were the only weapon that war could not take away. Arthur Bennett, driven by courage or desperation, climbed from the depths of the trench, stepping cautiously onto the frozen ground, his eyes searching for something more than emptiness. And on the other side, Friedrich Müller, a musician turned soldier, came up too, bringing with him not a gun but a violin, a relic of simpler times. Arthur raised his hand, not as a soldier but as a man, a simple but powerful gesture, defying everything that war stood for. And Friedrich responded, shaking Arthur's hand. In that moment, they were not enemies, but equals, united by shared humanity. The miracle spread. First, a soldier, then another. And then, on both sides, men emerged from the trenches as if the war had given way to something stronger. An exchanged cigarette, a small offering of peace in a world where it seemed impossible. The miracle spread. First, a soldier, then another. And then, on both sides, men emerged from the trenches as if the war had given way to something stronger. Then, the sound broke the silence. Not the sound of gunshots or explosions, but of music. Friedrich Müller played, and his notes echoed throughout the field, reaching even the most hardened hearts. That day, even the war was forgotten, and men who should have been enemies laughed and posed together, immortalizing a moment of humanity. But the sun began to set, and reality returned. Reluctantly, they returned to the trenches, taking with them the memory of that brief ceasefire. Arthur looked back at Friedrich and saw in him something that war could never erase: kindness. In that instant, he knew that, however brief it was, they had won. Arthur Bennett, a war-hardened young soldier, was there, standing on the edge between duty and doubt, his gaze lost on a horizon that seemed to offer no answers. And Friedrich Müller, a man whose soul had been consumed by the weight of the conflict, remained motionless. His eyes didn't just see the mud, they saw the reflection of choices that they could not erase. As night fell, the sky began to light up with stars, but on the ground, darkness remained, a reminder of what had been lost. Arthur took a deep breath, as if seeking strength in a place where it rarely existed. His gaze remained steady, fixed on the man in front of him. His fingers tightened on the handle of the rifle, as if it were his anchor. But at that moment, he knew he needed to let go of the weight. And Friedrich, looking down, seemed to carry the world on his shoulders. His posture said what words could not. Tiredness, regret, hope. Night has completely arrived, covering the no man's land with its darkness. But even in the darkness, the memory of that moment would shine like a beacon in the midst of chaos. Dawn brings with it a dim light, illuminating the battlefield like a scene frozen in time. Every piece of land seems to tell a story that war tries to bury. The battlefield seemed like an open wound in the earth, where men fought not only against the enemy, but against the very essence of war. Arthur Bennett was at his post, his body ready for battle, but his mind in turmoil. Every decision was a weight he carried alone. There was a time when the two shared something besides war. A truce, a moment of humanity, where laughter replaced fear. Now, on opposite sides again, their souls still shared the same pain. A look said what words never could. Friedrich knew the weight of his choice, but he chose music, not violence. And at that moment, his harmonica spoke for him. There was a moment when weapons were silenced and hands met, a handshake that said more than any treaty. And while the melody was lost on the horizon, it left a mark, a reminder that even in the midst of darkness, light could still exist.